Well, hello and welcome back to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. I'm Cord Zoen. I'm your host. I'm the CEO of Bake More Pies, a full-service advertising marketing agency located here in Tampa Bay. Also in Tampa Bay is Brian Tollberg, who joins us today as a guest. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Cords. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so a little bit about Brian. We're very happy to have you here. Brian was a past Major League Baseball professional athlete, played 3 years at the Major League level with the San Diego Padres, and total of 7 years in the league. Is that correct?
Parts of 4 years in the big leagues, 12 years professionally. So 12 years more than anybody would tell you that they had anticipated me playing.
Well, and it's so cool to hear your story because after like many professional athletes, after your career in baseball, you have become an entrepreneur, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about how we translate some of the lessons of being an athlete at such a high level into entrepreneurship. I think we could learn a lot from your experience.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. Obviously, you're a talented dude. You're 6'3", over 200 pounds. You've got the physical tools to become to be a world-class athlete. How does one take those tools and how do you apply that ethic and that heart, those other necessary components to get there at that elite level?
Well, I think back, even going back to like high school timeframe, I did not have those physical attributes. I had more of the heart and the grind and the work ethic more so than anything else. I graduated high school at 152 pounds.
Wow.
I was not on any major college teams' radars, nor pro teams. And I knew that. It was always kind of a pipe dream of mine since I was about 5 years old to get to the big leagues. But then as I got older, I started realizing like that is really, really difficult to have happen. And probably a more realistic option is to go to college, get a scholarship offer. And that's kind of how I set my sights. Dealt with some things in high school with a lot of kids do with politics of the game and such, and ended up quitting my junior year just because my grades were suffering and just the way I was treating people was bad. It was, most of this game is mental at a certain point, and ended up kind of checking myself after I quit that year and say, if I really want to get to the next level, I need to change how I do things and how I motivate myself. And beginning of my senior year, actually, I was at a showcase, and the coach asked about who had the best SAT scores, GPA, what have you. And if you had certain requirements, he would sign you on the spot. And I was kind of blown away that he wasn't asking about my fastball velocity or how many home runs I hit or where I went to school. He asked about the academic side more so than anything. So that kind of led me on the path to I attended University of North Florida in Jacksonville for 4 years. Went to school for free because I was a smart guy with a little bit of upside to me. And I think he saw the bare essentials of what needed to be there for me to become a more complete player if he had me for 4 years, and gained some weight obviously there and learned a lot under his tutelage up in Jacksonville. And even when I got done there, was a good player, not a great player. I still had my weaknesses or my perceived weaknesses at least, and went up to Ohio to a little place called Chillicothe, Ohio. It was the second year of a league. Existence up there, and went about trying out for that team and made $500 a month pre-tax money there, and really was on a mission to better myself, just to give myself an opportunity to maybe play at the minor league level. And anything after that was gravy, in my opinion. I was pretty close to graduating with my degree, so I thought, let's just see this. There's a very finite time window that you can play this game, period, let alone professionally. And so that was kind of my mindset, was go give it everything you can. My college coach and my dad always impressed upon me, don't walk away from anything with regret. So that's kind of how I worked hard and got to the point where I opened up some eyes and went to a tryout and had a good tryout post that independent league. And, that kind of led me to the pro ball world. So
did you actually finish college at that time, or did you quit early because the opportunity was there?
So I had a double major and a minor. Again, when I got to college at 152 pounds, there was no guarantee that I was going to get to play professionally. And so for me, I had a double minor in corporate finance and economics and a minor in international business. So for me, I wanted to travel around the world. I wanted to meet new people, experience new places. That was what my mindset was. So I had probably, with a double major minor, I had probably about 8 classes left after I finished my 4 years of playing. So I kind of made it work. So when I came back in the fall, I would take either a class or an independent study with the classes I had left. And the professors were very accommodating to me. So I came back for 2 off seasons to graduate. So
That's great. Well, congrats on finishing all that. My opinion is, if you're good enough to try for the pros, like, go for it. You can always come back with an ACL injury and finish and open a textbook,
No, you're definitely correct. And even past that, when I got to the big leagues the first year, I did I worked for a buddy of mine who is my former college teammate, and he's my financial advisor now. And I had talked to him about doing some type of internship underneath him. And I got done with my first year in the big leagues in 2000. And I called him up when I got home. I said, "When do I start?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? Like, you still want to do this?" I said, "There's no guarantee that I'll be there for any specific amount of time." So I went and worked for him in the financial industry. That's kind of what I thought I might do post-playing career. And so I got to work with him and gain some more experiences in the business world. So it all worked out.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about some of that development. I mean, obviously, I didn't know that you were you must have been pretty lean at 6'3" to be 155 pounds.
Very, very skinny. Yeah. I did not like the weight room, nor asked anybody what to do to get bigger and stronger back then. There's a lot more involved now with as far as the strength and conditioning goes. So back then, no. Okay. There's a lot more that is needing to be learned in regards to what? I'm sorry. I have to move my car real quick. I've been told to move.
Well, while you're moving it, let me ask you a question. So
yeah.
I'm not Sherlock Holmes, but my first name is Watson. And I would guess that you might be in the carpool line at Jesuit High School.
No, well, my 2 sons, I have a 9 and 7-year-old, and I actually am waiting for them to get out of elementary school. I am the pitching coach actually at Tampa Jesuit. So I've been there this will be my 4th year. Started in 2019 with them. So it's been a good ride. They have a nice program, and I truly enjoy what they do there. That's been a good little situation for me. So
gotcha. Well, let's talk. What I'm leading to is the quality of coaching and instruction as you move through the ranks. So what was it like going from the high school level? I mean, obviously you were playing, you were on the team. What was it like going from the high school level to the college level, and then to the minor leagues, and then the professional level? Like, what are those routines and training pieces that were added on or perfected as you got deeper into your career, your professional athletic career?
I'll tell you what was crazy is the further I went into the game gets simpler. It's all about everybody is talented at a certain level. It's just who's willing to put in a little bit more time and effort. And I try to promote that to the kids at Jesuit and my 2 little league teams that I coach as well here locally. It's all about how you practice. If I practice properly and I do things the right way, then that's going to show up in the game situations. And it's magnified the higher up you go. We may play 30 games in high school. You're going to play upwards of 60 to 70 games in college. Pro ball, minor leagues, you're playing 144 games. So you have to be able to come properly every single day and do things the right way. And at that point, it's your career. It's a business, and it's not about having fun when you get to the professional level. So So really taking the time to really focus on your practice reps and making sure you are as good as you can be when you're young and learning the game the right way. That's going to really pay off in spades when you get older. So.
Gotcha. So having focused on the grit and the heart early on, did you have an advantage when you got the rest of those physical tools developed?
I think so. I mean, I tell people all the time I was never the most talented player on any team I ever played on from Little League on up, but I was one of the better players, but that always drove me to be one of the better players, knowing that I wasn't the best. And I might have kind of slacked on my work ethic if I was the best. I see a lot of those kind of players along my career. So for me, I was never satisfied with being where I was at. I was always trying to get better and try to be humble about what I did. And that's something that my dad had told me a long time ago was, work as hard as you can. Don't let anybody outwork you when you get up there. And once I got to pro ball, there's guys that are, signed everywhere that you go, signed for millions of dollars, $500,000 out of high school or college. And so it's really going to come down to, are you better than them? And that's how you stick around, because they have a lot more money invested in them. They're going to probably, if we're the same kind of player, they're going to keep that guy because he's an investment a little bit higher than me. So I always had that mindset as well. Like, they have nothing invested in me. I signed for a plane ticket out of that independent league to my first spring training. So for me, from the get-go, I was like, I got to be better than anybody here. So.
Yeah, I love that. I love that determination. So you worked through the ranks, and then you finally got a crack at the major leagues. How did that go for you?
They had initially told me I was going up to the big leagues. We were in Tucson, Arizona. I was in AAA, and I was having a really good year. Mindset was good. Health was good. And I found out on Father's Day, actually, that I was going up to the big leagues. So had already spoken to my dad earlier that day before I went over to the ballpark and wished him a happy Father's Day. And that was just, couldn't have been any better timing for me to be able to give him a call later on that afternoon and tell him that I was 2 days from now, I was pitching the big leagues in Arizona against the Diamondbacks. Initially, it was only supposed to be 3 starts, is what they told me in the coaches meeting. I was there to as a stopgap until somebody came off the disabled list. And from that point on, I was going to get sent back down to AAA. And then maybe when they expanded rosters in September, then I might be a call up, but do the most with that opportunity that I could and create a favorable impression on the coaching staff up there and see what happens. So that's kind of what I tried to do, and didn't try to change my pregame routines or anything like that at all in the big leagues, which, again, there were times where I felt like I was having a heart attack and I was scared about embarrassing myself. And but then when it all came down to it, I was like, this is what you've worked your whole life for this one moment. So, take advantage of it, take it in and do everything that you can. And, be a great memory for years to come. And that first game, my brother was there. I had a couple of high school friends that lived in the area that were there. My parents flew out, and I ended up going 7 innings, 1 hit, ended up being player of the game. They were in first place. The Diamondbacks were, I don't think we had done very well at their place up to that point in time that year. So, I did well there. And then we were in the midst of a 12-game road trip when I got called up. And second game, I had a shutout going into the 8th inning at Cincinnati. So, and I needed rent. That was towards the end of June in 2000. And I had rent due back in Vegas. So I had to ask somebody after Cincinnati. We went to Los Angeles, and I had to ask, like, hey, where do I need to stay? I have rent being due. And they said, you can go ahead and move out during the All-Star break. You're going to be up here the rest of the year. And that rest of the year turned into, 2.5 years. So I think I made the most of that opportunity and did what I was capable of and maybe open up some eyes and had a lot of fun in the process.
Can we talk about in a little more, let us in a little bit, help us understand. Here you are, you've prepared your entire life for this moment, right? And you've got thousands and maybe tens of thousands of hours of preparation leading to this moment. You're in the stands. I'm guessing there's tens of thousands of people there. And
about 30. 5,000, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're the person that starts the play.
Yeah.
Like it's all you. So like when you are standing on that mound and you get the sign and you're ready, are you in some kind of like, did you just fight through the emotions? Did you all of a sudden get in this flow state? Like what happened? I
I
mean,
think,
good. Like you did really well. Like you made an impression, like you made it to where they couldn't ignore you.
yeah, that's what I'd hoped. And I just, I tried to take their words to heart and really do the most that you could with the time there. And there were times in the bullpen where the magnitude of the situation kind of hit home. And, I'd look up for a second to get recentered. I'd see my brother taking pictures over the balcony of me in the bullpen getting ready pregame. And there was a time when they were on defense first being the home team. And I went out there for my first inning. And, there's going to be, you're on TV at this point, nationwide potentially. And, I felt like I was going to have a heart attack or maybe throw up and it was like, take a breather, recenter yourself a little bit. And then, it's all about the first pitch. So throw a strike and then, everything. And I think after the first inning, jitters kind of went away and I got 3 down, I think the first inning. Then I kind of focused on, okay, who do I have next inning? Who am I facing? I sat down with the catcher and how do we want to attack these hitters? And so I think all those hours that you had alluded to, I think you get to a point where you have to be able to go back to the fundamentals of the game, and that's really what you need to do to execute and be successful, and take the enormity of the situation, whether it's a state championship game or league championship or whatever. All that is fine and dandy, but just really focus on what you need to do to be successful, and that for me is throwing strikes. That was my strength as a pitcher, was throwing strikes and not walking guys, not beating myself. So that's what I tried to go back to, just like I had done really well up to that point in AAA, in the minor leagues, and was very successful for those first couple games, especially.
Yeah, I remember I grew up being an Atlanta Braves fan, and I remember they had a great pitching rotation during the late 90s, and that was what they were famous for. It's just getting the ball over the plate, and it seemed like as long as you had a little something on the ball, a little bit of junk, little something, little placement, you were at an advantage over the batters. And
face the guys in Atlanta. One of my big idols growing up that I looked up to, even in the minor leagues, was Greg Maddux, and I got to face in Atlanta. I got beat that game, but just to see how they went about their business, and that was one of the kind of the neat things too, was you realize, some of the thoughts that crossed my mind those first couple hitters in Arizona was, well, I have this guy's rookie card, or I've seen this guy do this in spring training or whatever, and then you realize, like, well, you're part of that group now, and you can't put them on a pedestal. It's just another hitter that you need to get out that day. And so that was kind of a different way for me to look at things, the scope of things. But that's really what it came down to, was that was a coworker now, and you had a job to do, he had a job to do, and whoever did best was going to win that situation. So
yeah, so that was congrats on a successful professional career, and really, the professional athletes that I know that I'm friendly with, I actually played football in college and had a few teammates go on to be professional athletes. And here I am sitting here at 155 pounds. I was a kicker, of course. I wasn't making any tackles or anything. And I was always a backup, never got in a game. But I was really fortunate because I got to pick up on a lot of those lessons of being in those coaching meetings and those types of things. And all of my friends who were successful, that went on to a professional career, they didn't plan on playing forever. Right. And really, it seemed like once they hit that status, us having known them as friends, for years, we were kind of like, here, this person is amassing these millions and millions of dollars, and it's almost like chum in the water with sharks. You're approached with all these family members and friends and all these other people that want to try to somehow leverage your wealth.
Right.
How do you manage that? And how did you turn that into an entrepreneurial career? Like, tell us a little bit about that process, because I think, every now and then people come into some money and things like that. And you're probably relatively young, when you retired as a professional athlete. and tell us about that next step and how you went through that process of deciding what to do next.
Well, I feel like I was very fortunate from the get-go. I don't feel like I changed how I conduct myself, whether I was a college athlete or minor league athlete or pro athlete. The people that were around me and believed in me when I was young, I kept those people around. And it was easy to see. There were people that, were kind of one-off friends that as soon as you did get to the big time, those people started to come out of the woodwork a little bit. And you kind of kept those people at arm's length, I feel like. But for me, I always knew that this was not something I was going to do forever. That you wanted to leverage your connections and your relationships. And I'm a big fan of being friendly with anybody that you come across, because you never know who's going to help you at the next segment of life. And so when I had Tommy John surgery towards the tail end of my career, and I knew that was probably going to speed up my retirement time frame. And I just knew I didn't want to go to work for somebody. I wanted a type of job that I could be my own boss and set my own hours and get out of it what I put into it, just like the minor leagues taught me to get to the big leagues. And so for me, there was an opportunity that came across owning a franchise where I was living at the time in South Tampa. And so I decided to take a flyer on that. It was the first one in Tampa at that time. So we bought an edible arrangements franchise.
Naturally.
And
Naturally.
the first thing to think of that athlete would get into. I have friends that own Lamborghini dealerships, or they, own real estate or whatever. I was like, no, I'm going to cut fruit and dip it in chocolate. So, but I've always been a big believer in customer service, places that just have unparalleled customer service, like a Nordstrom or Chick-fil-A. And I'm a lifelong customer because of that. And so for me, I was like, if I can bring any of that kind of stuff, even though I don't know anything about it in my own business, nothing about marketing or payroll or accounting, no, nothing, zero. Because the prior 12 years I played professional baseball and chased a dream, but I was like, but if I can bring a quality product and have unparalleled customer service, things will go pretty good for me moving forward. And so that's really all I did. I kind of learned trial by fire. We got training for a week from corporate, and the two people that I thought were going to be my customer service reps, the corporate trainer said I would fire both of those immediately. They're not going to last you more than a week or two. They don't have what it takes. So this guy was my CSR 6 days a week until I figured stuff out. And I probably pulled 70-hour weeks there for a good bit of time, just trying to figure out what was what, and getting my name out there and getting our product out there to the consumers, because nobody knew really what it was at that time. And but it's not a hard, I mean, if you know how to sell and you know how to network, I mean, it's fruit and it's chocolate at fruit. It's not a hard sell to people. You just got to find a way that it makes sense for their lives or their businesses to help them grow. And that's really how I try to approach things. And South Tampa Chamber of Commerce Small Business Award, I think 2014 we won. And I had some very loyal customers. Yankees ownership bought from us a long time. Up until they passed away several years ago. So I met a lot of cool people in the process. So at the end of the day, it taught me a lot of life lessons and what to do and what not to do in business, and how to deal with people that are underneath you, because in baseball, everybody was kind of on the same level. If you were on a certain team together, everybody was right there. It wasn't like somebody outranked you. And now I had to learn how to be like a leader, and I'm not one of you. I'm paying your checks at the end of the week, but at the end of the day, I'm not averse to doing anything I ask you to do. So if toilets need to be cleaned, I did it. If I needed to go buy fruit at 6 a.m, I did it. If I needed to take trash out, I did it. So I wanted them to see I am willing to do anything that I ask you to do, and vice versa. So, and we were successful. I mean, I never really had an exit strategy out of there. And that's, during my wife started to become a little bit more involved there, and realized like this is really hard work at a certain point, especially around the major holidays of Valentine's, Mother's Day, Christmas time, and having young kids that are only going to get older and need more time. We needed to look for an exit strategy. So that's what we did January this year. We sold it after a little over 14 years of owning it. So, but it was great. I mean, I still to this day think very fondly about my time there and the lessons I learned. So, and it you know, made me realize, what do I want to do post that, and still be my own boss and still do what I'm passionate about and help a lot of people in the process and hopefully make a nice living doing it.
Well, I think you've said a tremendous amount right there. I didn't want to interrupt you, but one of the things I would like to touch on, or we can dissect just slightly, is number one of the most important lessons I learned in business school, where I went to college, was if you've got a great product or a great service, just if it's just great, you know, it can sell itself. It can equalize all of those other pieces that people get, you know, I call it wrapped around the axle. I borrowed that from somewhere, but it doesn't have to be complicated. If you can just deliver, if you can anticipate your client's needs, if you can look out for them, if you can make sure it's on time, it's what they expect, you know, like there's a good chance you're going to be successful unless there's some external factor. So I like the fact that, you know, we've talked a lot about your athletic career early on, but it really does just boil down to fundamentals, right? I mean, you're going to have market share. I mean, we talked about, there probably was other edible arrangement businesses in town, might not have been any of that franchise, but there was definitely other opportunities. I mean, if you're giving a gift, you could give a bouquet of flowers. You don't have to give a bouquet of edible flowers.
Sure. Well, and that was an easy, you know, to say. You could give them something else. You can give them chocolates, but you can do chocolate and fruit. You can do flowers, but flowers die. You can't share flowers with people. So again, I think the more I learned the industry a little bit, and there were other people, but they knew if they came to my store, I was going to take care of them better than other people. I was going to over them, over deliver. And so for me, that's, and I learned that pretty early. I had somebody that, for, you know, you try to be 100% successful every delivery we made. Somebody had left work early, somebody's wife, for one of my first Valentine's Day. And guy tore into me a little bit on the phone, and I took it and I said, "I'm sorry." And he's like, "Sorry is not going to help my Valentine's Day gift be there or whatever." And I realized, like, you're right. Like, that's not really going to help him at all. And so I just always try to put myself in their shoes, and what would I want out of this, whether it was comped and a free one the next day. Because really what you learn is you're not going to really be successful at anything if it's just one and done with your customer service or your customer base. You wanted them buying 3, 4, 5 times a year. And if they knew that you were going to be, you know, on time, they knew the fruit was going to be quality. They knew you were going to serve with a smile. Most of these that got delivered, people didn't know they were coming. So for me, it was just doing things the right way. And if you had people that were ordering 5, 6, 7 times, or you had corporate accounts, which I was big on trying to get corporate accounts for businesses, then everything else was great, because you were going to have your birthdays, your anniversaries, your new babies, you're going to have all that. But I really wanted to get the individuals and give them a reason. So it was easy. They knew exactly if something came up, they needed a gift for their kid's teacher, boom, they sent one. If there was a death in somebody else's family out of state, they could call me and I'd take care of it. So I just wanted to be that one person that, you know, take something off their plate that they needed to get done, and make sure that it got done successfully. So, and we were successful. I mean, I that's one of the things that I miss now, is the interaction with the customer base more than anything else, just because it was, you know, it just made every day interesting. Every day was unique in how it kind of came about. So I do miss that interaction, the customer service interaction. That's kind of why I got into what I'm doing now. So
yeah, well, let's talk about that. And appreciate you sharing. Like, I kudos to everything you just said. I think that obviously you've touched on a lot of keys to success. So let's talk about what's next for you. Obviously, you left the baseball world. You transferred a lot of that. And just who you are and how you approach things into an entrepreneurial space, something entirely unexpected, edible arrangements. But like, it just goes to show you that, like, you can be successful at a lot of things by doing those fundamentals correctly. So let's talk about what's next, because now you're bringing your body of knowledge and your baseball skills back into the fold. So tell us about what your next venture is and how that's the future.
So actually during Edible Arrangements, probably about 10 years ago, somebody came in soliciting a donation for a church event or something like that. And I gave them a gift card, and I always had a picture of me pitching from the big leagues on the wall, just as an icebreaker. If a kid came in with a parent or whatever, and they're like, why do you have a ball player on your wall? I'm like, that's me when I was better looking. So it was just an icebreaker, easy one for the kids. And they're like, oh, you played, would you be interested in doing a lesson to raffle off? And I said, I don't know how much you'll get for it, but I said, sure, I'll do one. I've never done a lesson up to this point. I mean, Tampa is very tradition rich with, Dwight Gooden and Gary Sheffield and Fred McGriff. I mean, there's tons of ball players over the decades that have come out of here. So I was like, they're not going to want to do a lesson with me. Well, I got contacted for that one, the one that I donated, had an absolute blast doing it. And I was like, if this is what lessons are like, this is kind of cool. And they loved it. So they're like, well, can we do another one? I'm like, I didn't expect that. So then I started thinking about doing lessons and kind of supplementing what I did. And it was all word of mouth from that point. And it was local kids. I didn't have a place that I did it. I didn't have business cards or, anything along those lines, but I loved doing it. Loved it.
And let's talk about that. Let me interrupt you real quick. So you had a blast doing it. Was it seeing the dream in someone else's eyes? Was it fun because you helped them get better? Like
help get better? Because there's a difference now. I mean, there's a lot of people that know a lot about the game, but there's a lot of there's different language you're using with a 6-year-old versus a 16-year-old. So and how they can assimilate that information. So for me, it was and the kid was probably about 10, 12. So to kind of figure out, well, what do you feel like you need to get better at? And then kind of working backwards on what, and telling them stuff from my career that helped in that particular situation or whatever. So then it became not only the fundamental side of, the mechanical side of pitching, but then, because kids would get nervous or they, something would happen, they get down on themselves. And then now like the whole mental side comes into play a little bit more too. So now you're like a sports psychologist / mechanics guy, whatever. And then people would get kind of close and they'd have an opportunity. The more my clientele grew, the more people that had a chance to play at the next level, they would say, well, I don't know the first thing. Well, then I started to try to educate myself on, well, what does that look like for colleges and scholarship money and how much is available? And so I started to try to become anything that you needed information on, I could provide it to you in an unbiased manner, because you're not, and I tell the kids, I'm like, look, if you don't want to work hard here, it's on you. You're not my kid. I can never work another day with you in my life, and I'm okay. I sleep well at night, but if you want to get better, I'm going to give you the keys to being successful moving forward. Then it's up to you to take this information and run with it. And the kids that I've had over the years that really truly take that information and run, it's pretty cool. We've had some kids that signed for major D1 programs. I should have my first big league guy that got drafted 5th round in 2020 by the Rays, was a Jesuit kid. Started working with him in 8th grade. He's probably about a year or two away from the big leagues in their bullpen. So it's very gratifying. I mean, just because I was very fortunate when I was young to have some really good coaches, and the people that stood out that really I made a connection with, I gravitated toward those people and really respected anything that they told me. And so that's all I try to be for kids and the parents as well, is just a source of information. If you need to bounce something off me, if you have a question that I can't answer, I'll find out the answer. So there's more people than not that don't have an idea of how to make their kids successful. And they're willing to do anything in their power to give their kids a chance of being successful, even though this is a game of failure. Baseball, if you're successful 3 out of 10 times hitting, you could go to the Hall of Fame. Well, there's not a lot of things that you're going to do in life that's going to be considered a success. So just arming them with the tools to be able to understand, like, like there were some, to be able to sit down after a game and say, this is what you really did well. What do we need to focus on to be a little bit better next time? And so it's always about, getting better incrementally over the course of the season, over the next week, the next month, the next year. And there's a way to do it. It's just, giving them that blueprint of success and then seeing what happens.
And so you're scaling that right now virtually.
We are. What we started to, once I kind of had it in my mindset that we were probably not going to own edible arrangements forever. During the shutdown, I was very fortunate several years ago to go to the Middle East. I went to 3 countries in the Middle East, Dubai, Qatar, Kuwait. I had the good fortune to go to Hong Kong several years with some buddies that were former big league guys. I went over with MLB alumni in 2019 to northern Spain. And I was like, this is incredible. Like, number one, they pay for everything for you to go over there. The kids have no resources on a daily basis to get themselves better. They love everything you do for them, and they appreciate it so much as well. And during the shutdown, I was like, I miss going to those places or whatever. I do lessons here locally, but now I have the ability to get on a plane at a moment's notice and fly anywhere in the world and do stuff, face to face, or in the meantime, because I could be there. I mean, we would go over to Dubai, for instance, for a week, and then we're leaving. And the first thing they ask you is, when are you coming back? And at the time I was just hired help. So it's just whenever they figure out when I can come back is when I'm coming back, taking another 18-hour flight over here. But now we have the ability with Training Without Borders to kind of do whatever we want in this space. And it's not a, there's people that have been doing this for several years, but I feel like we can do it better. I feel like we are very well established in this space for what we currently provide. And there's enough kids to go around. I mean, there's 500,000 kids in the United States alone that play high school baseball. For us to have a couple thousand kids is a drop in the bucket that we work with. And so, and I feel like the more traction we get and the more people try what we do, it's only going to get busier and busier as we move forward. And it all goes back to just being able to help the kids and enjoy doing what we're doing. So, and if I can throw a little bit of travel in there and maybe take the family from time to time with me on these adventures, all the better. So
when you start a business, an entrepreneurial like venture, you don't always have to invest in all the technology. You don't have to create something from scratch. You can use tools that are available and then use this new channel, which is virtual. We all learned during COVID how to use Zoom.
Yes.
And so anyhow, I really admire that about you guys, that here you are, you have something that is proprietary, which is your knowledge, and you're just using available tools to transfer it into to work with these customers of you guys on the training.
Correct. Yeah, the platform that we're using, when I was in the big leagues, I was at IMG. I was a client of IMG down in Bradenton, and it's actually a platform that they utilize as well, and they've been extremely successful with it around the world. So we didn't need to spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time on developing something new where the technology already existed. Then it's just plug in with us and utilize the people that we already have in our market here locally, and then plus trying to grow it both domestically and internationally. And then I bought business cards for my personal lessons here. Cost me about $25 probably 10 years ago. That's the only money I've ever put into it. So now, and it's grown upwards of probably about 300 people here locally.
Oh my!
So to know that now we can kind of try to reach the masses and actively promote what we're doing and how we can help the student athlete wherever they may be with this tool. It's very user friendly, and I think we're going to be quite successful. It's just a matter of like you had mentioned before, nobody knew what Zoom and what work from home was going to look like, and now it's kind of like the norm. So I think at some point this is going to be a way to not necessarily change what they do, but at least supplement what they currently do. And it may be where they find more value doing that versus face-to-face lessons. So that's kind of our goal. And I think we're going to be quite successful once we get going and we get a little bit more traction and people kind of understand the process.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things that I see that you're doing, and based off my marketing experience that I really like, is you've productized it. If you go to your website, which is trainingwob.com, you can see that it's not squishy what the price is. It's really simple. It's like you can get Brian's coaching expertise for this simple price, and it scales.
Right. And one of the things that's kind of nice too is I can't be everywhere. There's only 24 hours in a day. And so not only the people here locally, people have school, people have other things that they have to do. They have brothers and sisters that they have to work their schedule around. This is something where you can record video anytime, anywhere, send it to me. And basically that is my day job from 8 to 5 every day. I can help kids in an office environment and knock these things out and have conversations if necessary with mom or dad as well during the day. So that is something I've never been able to do with the local lessons, the personal lessons. And we're hoping, I think, because you're there for a week when you go to do these type of camps around the country, what do they do in the other 51 weeks of the year to hold themselves accountable to get better? And this is something that we hope to go to different places around the world, for that matter, once a quarter, that we have little pockets of a lot of players. We'll go there once a quarter on our dime. They don't have to pay a dime for us to go there. And then knowing that they're going to supplement our time there in person with the online stuff, they're going to get better. I mean, I've honestly said, I have money back guarantee. If you don't feel like you add value by working with me, then I'll give you your money back. So, and I've done that local level as well, and never had anybody reach out to me to get their money back. So,
well, just by your own natural ability and talent, you are hitting on a lot of really, really important marketing pieces. We really appreciate you joining us today, and Brian, and sharing some of your lessons about how you've been successful. And we really appreciate your stories and spending time with us.
My pleasure. I apologize for the snafu a little earlier as well.
We'll edit that out. Don't worry.
That is life, though. That is how my days go, certain time frames, and it's just a matter of rolling with it, adapt and overcome. So, all good. I appreciate the time, though.
Yeah. Thanks again. And where can people follow you to keep track of get some of your coaching, or listen to your thought leadership?
Well, you said a little bit earlier. It's www.trainingwob. That's trainingwithoutborders.com. That has my bio. It has my contact information. They can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Easy. It's Brian Tollberg or B Tollberg on Instagram. But and if they have any questions, feel free to reach out to you directly, and you can route them to me. So I'm more than happy to help any way I can, and greatly appreciate the time that you give me today.
Thanks again, Brian. And you can follow the Law of Relevancy at lawofrelevancy.com, anywhere where podcasts are found, and all the Bake More Pie social channels. We will see you guys next time.